If you are at the least bit familiar with one of my videos, you know I am a fan of the game Burnout 3 Takedown, developed by Criterion Games and published by EA for the Xbox and PlayStation in 2004. So why are you obsessed with this stupid old car game, huh? You may ask. The reason is simply because this is a game that I hold dear to my heart. I recall so many nostalgic memories playing video games as a kid, and Burnout 3 was one of those games that I distinctly remember playing. It's left such a huge impact on me that I still revisit the game to this day. Burnout 3 was one of those few games that got me into gaming. And it all started in the long-forgotten year of 2005. I was but a wee cringe baby at the age of 4. My first exposure to video games was Super Mario World on my dad's Super Nintendo. I vaguely remember playing it and dying on the first enemy I encountered.
Look at this dude.
I mostly played the games we had on my dad's Super Nintendo until that fateful day my dad purchased an Xbox that was initially for himself, but I slowly took over. I can't recall how or why we bought Burnout 3, but that was a strange move, given that we usually used to rent games from our nearest Blockbuster. I popped that shit in and I was instantly hooked. From then on, at the incredibly young and impressionable age of 4, video games became my go-to hobby. Obviously, as a kid, I had no idea what game design or strategy was. The only thing going through my mind as a kid while playing Burnout was, cool car crash! Because I had the mental capacity of a literal chimpanzee as a kid, the only semblance of strategy I had was immediately picking the new cars I unlocked. Because according to my 4-year-old mind, if the car is new, it must mean it's better than ones that I currently had.
I'll explain why I was wrong later.
Unfortunately, after moving to a new place, the CD that I had for Burnout 3 had broken, and I wasn't reunited with the game until I had a nostalgia scratch that needed to be itched, and I impulse bought an Xbox along with the games I played in my childhood. I didn't realize how genius of a game Burnout 3 was until I replayed it and 100% of the entire game. That is a feat not many games I play achieve, as I have an extremely low attention span and want to get straight into the neuron activation. So after playing the game today, how does the gameplay age? The answer? It hasn't. In fact, it has some of the best gameplay compared to the modern video game releases we see today. Even the graphics hold up damn well. The crashes are visually stunning, with a ton of debris, car chunks and wheels flying off, and your vehicle bending and contorting in real time, which was an impressive technical feat given that the game was running on the Xbox and PlayStation 2. And the track designs look and play great. It's quite difficult to pull off a map design that both looks visually appealing and makes sense functionally in terms of geography and gameplay. For instance, there are pillars in the downtown map that provide many takedown opportunities, while also adding to the urban city aesthetic of the downtown Chicago-inspired map. The only exception to this design are the arrows that block off intersections and other parts of the map, but it makes sense in terms of gameplay, as it allows for a more consistent racing experience. Though this does come at the expense of shortcut opportunities, as there aren't many in this game. Whether or not that's a positive or negative is really up to the individual. And despite the online servers being down, the single player modes offer so much to play and unlock that you're gonna be here for a while. And believe me when I tell you, this glorious game has some masterfully crafted, high-octane gameplay that will keep you coming back for more. Burnout 3 may have one of the best mechanics in any racing game ever. The orgasmic sound design accompanied with the high speeds, butt-clenching near misses into oncoming traffic, and the insanely satisfying, iconic takedowns create a racing experience like no other. High risk, high reward is the name of the game. Dangerous maneuvers, near-missing vehicles, driving into oncoming traffic, and slamming into rivals will add boost to your vehicle, which in turn will allow you to reach max speeds to get a leg up on your competition. Furthermore, taking down rival vehicles will not only add boost to your meter, but increase the maximum amount by 1, up to a cap of 4. However, if you get rammed by one of your opponents, you will lose boost from your meter. But should you crash or get taken down, a chunk of your boost bar will be depleted. Though, in the instance of a crash, it doesn't necessarily spell doom, as perhaps in one of the most unique features in any racing game ever, Impact Time allows you to steer your wreck in slow motion towards your rivals for a takedown opportunity, effectively allowing you to negate the penalties for crashing, as your boost bar will be filled up once again. These are the core mechanics that complement the various game modes you play through during the World Tour mode. In each event, you'll be able to earn bronze, silver, or gold medals for meeting a certain quota in each respective rank. Since I fully completed this game, I settled for nothing lower than the gold rank in each event. The playable events are Race, the tried and true racing game mode in which you race against 5 rivals from start to finish. There isn't really much to say about races, other than the gameplay adding a unique take on the racing formula with takedowns. Road Rage, where you take down opponents to meet a certain quota before either time runs out or you total your car. Now this is the game mode that keeps me coming back to this game. It is impossible for me to explain how satisfying it is to take down opponents in this mode. The respawns for the AI are perfect and they constantly keep you in the action. The aggressive battling between you and your opponents will never allow for a dull moment to arise. Burning Laps. Race alone against the timer to finish the lap under the given times. There are also other niche modes that follow the same formula, which are special events and preview laps, but they are essentially the same thing with very few subtle differences. Special events are new postcards, and preview laps allow you to use cars outside the classes you have yet to unlock. Grand Prix, in which you compete in a multitude of races and rack up the most amount of points by the end of each race. First place gets you the most points, and last place gets you the least. Eliminator, in which you race 6 laps around the map, and for each lap you complete, the racer in last will explode until the person in first is the last one standing. Technically making Burnout 3 the first racing battle royale. And
Face off!
you race one-on-one with your opponent to unlock their car. That's about it. On a side note, Race and Road Rage were available on the online modes. However, online Road Rage had a difference. There is a red team and a blue team. Blue team gets 3 crashes each, and red has to hunt them down before they reach the finish line. It really is a shame that I wasn't able to experience this game online, because I know I would have sunk hours into those online lobbies. Back on topic, in these events, there are a plethora of locations you race in, ranging from the USA, Europe, and the Far East. Each map has a distinct layout combined with an urban environment that makes for an interesting, intense, and dynamic gameplay experience. Furthermore, there are a variety of cars to unlock in their respective classes: Compact, Muscle, Coupe, Sports, and Super, with a plentiful amount of colors to choose from, if your favorite colors are red, blue, yellow, black, or white. Fun fact! Some cars that originally didn't have the blue color options available were able to be blue because of the online Team Road Rage mode. Damn! Also, the only stats that are listed for each car are speed and weight, but there's an important hidden stat that isn't listed for some reason. Handling. Some cars have an abysmal handling that feels like you're driving on ice with your wheels doused in oil, while other cars are capable of hugging corners at near top speeds. And that handling stat was why my strategy of immediately picking the newest car I unlocked as a kid fell flat on its face. However, the handling stat doesn't really matter for the heavyweight vehicles, which are used exclusively for a mode that I'll be discussing shortly. So that about wraps up the gameplay, but if you're still yearning for some more Burnout action,
Or a total masochist,
you can try to 100% the game by collecting all postcards, crash headlines, vehicles, gold medals for all the World Tour events, takedown trophies, and signature takedowns. This will add a couple more hours to your gameplay, and expect to spend multiple of those hours trying to get the fucking truck torpedo signature takedown like God, what? Now, as much I'd love to go on and on about the best aspects of the game, I would be lying if I glossed over some of the problems I had. And it's no coincidence that there's one last core game mode that I did not elaborate on, and that's Crash Mode. Returning from Burnout 2, in this revamped version, the goal is to crash into traffic and cause heavy pileups in order to reach the highest score, which is measured in the total amount of financial damage done from the vehicles you total. As you progress in this mode, more pickups other than cash get introduced into the mix. From then, it kinda just develops into picking up the ×4 multiplier and avoiding the Heartbreaker pickup, which cuts your score in half. Now, I'm about to say something extremely controversial here. I really didn't care for Crash Mode all too much.
What?
No, alright. I know that's
I will admit that it's a fun little break between the racing modes, and I can see why this would be someone's favorite mode, even though they're wrong. But for me, it just gets way too repetitive and straight up exhausting to play for prolonged periods of time, especially if you're planning to get all the gold medals for all the events. Also, Crash Breaker is a neat little addition that allows you to reposition your wreck after your crash, but oftentimes, because the camera is uncontrollable, it's usually at an awkward angle and prevents me from properly rerouting my wreck towards a multiplier. Personally, to satisfy my Burnout fix, I come for the racing events, as they are leagues more entertaining to binge than Crash Mode. Had there been more emphasis on the racing and crash mode events were kept to a minimum, I would probably enjoy this game mode a lot more. Though I gush about the racing modes, they are not without their flaws. I feel like these problems are shared universally, but they're still worth mentioning. Now, as much as I love unlocking new things, it really feels like you progress through the game, sometimes a little too much, as it can get a bit annoying sitting through the car unlock cutscenes, especially after unlocking multiple cars and awards, because you're going to be sitting through them like,
No more unlocks! Congratulations! A new vehicle has been delivered to your garage! No more unlocks!
Also, there is no way to end road rage events early other than purposely crashing after you obtain the gold medal. While on the topic of takedowns, they can sometimes feel punishing even though you were doing exactly what the game encouraged. And I don't mean going for a takedown and crashing because you missed, because that was clearly your fault. I mean that when you take down an opponent, the wreck is usually flinged out of your way. However, in the case that your opponent isn't skyrocketed out of your way, the wreck sometimes clings to you until you eventually push it away. This can cause you to immediately crash afterward, because when your opponent crashes into a car in which you wrecked, you will crash off that other wreck because the game doesn't register that as another takedown. Even though causing a chain reaction of wrecks should be rewarded, I feel that the game punishes you for utilizing the very system it built itself upon. And there's one last major problem I would like to note. This game artificially pumps up its difficulty by having prominent rubber banding in its races. Now that's not to say that it shouldn't be used at all. Trust me, it's a much needed addition to road rage, as slowing down or having to catch up to your rivals would be a hell of an annoyance. Hell, even in races I wouldn't mind some rubber banding here and there. You don't want to make the game too easy, but holy shit do they shove the AI up your ass, especially in the face-off events.
You can't keep getting away with it!
You better crash anywhere between the beginning and middle of a race, or catch them in your wreck, as no matter how well you drive, any crash near the finish line is almost certainly a loss. No! I crashed like right near the end. Come on. Come on. You son of a bitch! Fuck. This can get frustrating because races are lengthy, and you can be ruthlessly punished for making one mistake near the finish line, making you feel like you wasted your time. That being said, the frequency at which I encounter these problems are usually very few and far between, and the rock-solid gameplay alone is more than enough to outweigh any complaints that I have, and definitely is not indicative of the entire Burnout experience. But do you want to know something that is a part of the Burnout experience? The soundtrack.
Hey, want to listen to some tunes?
Generally, there are mixed opinions on Burnout 3's soundtrack, and it really depends on your music taste. But luckily for me, as a kid, I had no idea what having taste was, so I ended up loving the alternative, pop-punky soundtrack of Burnout. And to be honest, whether you like the music or not, you have to admit that it complements the high-octane action perfectly. When one of these songs comes on in my Spotify playlist, I have to heavily resist the urge to go 160 into oncoming traffic. I will admit, nostalgia is probably the only reason why I still like this type of music.
But My Chemical Romance still slaps fighting.
The in-game music is actually diegetic, played in the form of a radio station host by the name of DJ Stryker. Many will understandably say that him cutting in mid-track is annoying, which can be at times, especially when he deprives you of that serotonin release as you drift perfectly in time with the song's chorus. But there's just something so endearing about DJ Stryker, and I find his commentary to be amusing at times. Just take a listen.
Don't bother, you can't see squat up here. Whose dumbass idea was this anyway? Probably my ex-girlfriend's Crash FM telling you where to be and where not.
So that's the game. Which brings us to today. Since the release of Burnout 3, there have only been 2 major releases in the series, and a couple of spin-off games. The most recent Burnout release was Burnout Paradise Remastered in 2018, and I really hope that was EA testing the waters for a Burnout 3 remaster. I wouldn't mind EA tweaking the gameplay to add newer additions from other games, like vertical takedowns, wider color selections for your car, quality of life improvements, and maybe even shortcuts. I would kill to play this game with a graphical overhaul and online play. Seriously, EA has the potential to make a nearly perfect game into a masterpiece of the racing genre. And surprisingly, despite the game's age, Burnout still has a somewhat active cult following online via Discord, and to some extent, even the r/Burnout subreddit. But there's one community in particular that's starting to show some promise. And remember how I mentioned that the online servers were down? That might not be the case anymore with the Burnout 3 Online Revival Discord server. With this Burnout 3 Revival project, they seem to be making some tremendous progress, even making it into lobbies. Now, as I do not know anything about programming or anything to do with that sort, exercise caution before downloading anything. And on another note, the lead devs and administrators aren't fluent in English, so there can be some difficulties in communication. However, should this project be successful, you can expect to see me on the road. To any of you that are interested, I'll be leaving a link to the communities I mentioned in the description. With all that in mind, I'll end on this note. EA, please, for the love of God, at the very least, re-release Burnout 3 with the online servers. I've been dying to play this game with other people.